My name is Ava Sterling. I'm 29 and 6 months ago I became the youngest principal research scientist at Nextech, a quantum computing company worth $3.2 billion. I've spent the last 3 years building Project Aurora, a quantum AI system that processes data 10,000 times faster than anything on the market. Conservative estimates put its value at enough cents $1 million. This was my baby. Every algorithm, every line of code, every breakthrough came from my team's blood and sweat. Then Ryan Hale walked into my lab 4 months ago. Victoria Hale's son. Our CEO's golden boy. He's 31, Harvard MBA, and a technical understanding of quantum physics that wouldn't fill a teaspoon. Our first meeting was a disaster. I was presenting a quantum entanglement breakthrough to the board when he interrupted me. "Can we skip the academic masturbation and get to the numbers?" That's what he said, word for word. In front of 15 executives and my entire research team, I kept my voice steady. "Mr. Hale, the science is the foundation. Without understanding quantum coherence, the numbers are meaningless." He smiled like I was a child explaining why the sky is blue. "Ava, I appreciate your passion, but investors care about ROI, not particle physics. Let's focus on deliverables." That smile. I would learn to hate that smile. 2 days later, Victoria announced Ryan as Aurora's new project lead. My project. 3 years of work, and suddenly I'm reporting to someone who thinks quantum superposition is a yoga pose. The email hit my inbox at 6 p.m. on a Friday. Effective immediately, all Aurora decisions route through Ryan Hale. This restructuring will optimize our path to commercialization. I went to her office Monday morning, professional, calm. "Victoria, I need to understand this decision. Aurora is 18 months from beta testing. Changing leadership now could set us back." She didn't even look up from her laptop. "Ryan brings fresh perspective. You'll still handle the technical work. This is about leadership, not science." Fresh perspective, that's corporate speak for, "My son needs a win on his resume." Ryan started coming to the lab daily, every morning at 9 a.m. sharp, disrupting whatever we were working on. He'd walk through, touch equipment he didn't understand, ask questions that revealed he hadn't read a single technical document. Last Tuesday, he picked up a quantum processor worth $2 million like it was a paperweight. "Ryan, please. That's calibrated to nanometer precision." "Relax, Ava. I'm just looking." He set it down wrong, 3 degrees off axis. My lead engineer had to spend 6 hours recalibrating it. But the real nightmare started 3 weeks ago. Ryan decided Aurora needed to launch in 6 months instead of 18. 6 months. For a system that's rewriting the foundations of artificial intelligence. I explained why that was impossible. The quantum error correction alone requires another year of testing. "Ava, you're overthinking this. I've read the specs. 6 months is doable if we cut some of the redundant testing." "There is no redundant testing. Every protocol exists because quantum systems fail in unpredictable ways. Then we'll fix problems as they come up. That's called agile development." He said that. Agile development, for quantum computing. I wanted to scream. Instead, I scheduled a presentation for the board. 70 slides, documenting why his timeline would destroy the project. I worked 3 nights straight, preparing data, projections, risk assessments. The presentation was set for last Thursday at 2 p.m. Wednesday night at 11:47 p.m., my phone buzzed. "Ryan, can you send me your presentation? Want to review it before tomorrow." I should have said no, but I was exhausted, and he was technically my supervisor. I sent it. Thursday morning I walked into the boardroom. Ryan was already presenting. My slides, my data, my 3 nights of work. But he'd changed every conclusion. Where I'd written, critical failure risk, at 67%, he'd changed it to acceptable risk threshold. Where I documented, requires 12 additional months, he'd written optimizable to 6 months with proper resource allocation. He smiled at me as I entered. That smile again. "Ava!" Perfect timing. "I was just presenting your excellent analysis, showing we can meet the accelerated timeline." I stood there, frozen. Every exec was nodding. Victoria looked pleased. If I contradicted him, I'd look incompetent. If I stayed silent, I'd be complicit in sabotaging my own project. Actually, those conclusions are incorrect. The data shows the opposite. Ryan's smile never wavered. Ava, I think you're being overly cautious. Sometimes scientists get too attached to perfection. We need to balance excellence with business reality. Victoria cut in. Ryan's right. Ava, your technical expertise is invaluable, but we need to trust leadership on strategic decisions. The 6-month timeline is approved. That was 8 days ago. Since then, things have gotten worse. Ryan shows up at my apartment building. I was just in the neighborhood 3 times this week. He texts me at midnight asking about work, then adds comments like, "You should relax more," or, "All work and no play makes Ava a dull girl." Yesterday, he came to the lab and stood behind me while I worked. Close. Too close. I could feel his breath on my neck. When I moved away, he touched my shoulder. "Don't be so tense, Ava. We're a team." My team sees it. Nobody says anything. He's the CEO's son. I'm realizing he's been systematically isolating me. He schedules team meetings when I'm running critical experiments, then tells everyone I'm not a team player. He's reassigned my 2 senior engineers to other projects. He's cutting my lab budget by 40% starting next month. I'm watching Aurora die. 3 years of breakthroughs, innovations that could change computing forever, and it's being destroyed by someone who cares more about his resume than reality. When this launches early and fails catastrophically, it won't be his career that ends. It'll be mine. Every failure will have my name on it because I'm the principal scientist. I don't know what to do. HR reports to Victoria. The board trusts Ryan because he's confident and knows exactly what they want to hear. I have emails, I have data, I have 3 years of documentation proving Aurora needs more time. But none of that matters when you're fighting nepotism backed by billions. Am I overreacting? Is this just normal corporate politics? Or am I watching my life's work get stolen in real time by someone who sees it as nothing more than a stepping stone? Last Monday, Ryan scheduled an emergency board presentation. He told my team it was about strategic realignment. He told me nothing. I found out when his assistant accidentally copied me on a calendar invite. The subject line read, "Aurora Commercialization Strategy by Ryan Hale." I showed up anyway. The conference room went silent when I walked in. Ryan was already at the podium, my research on the screen behind him. Not just my slides this time, my actual lab reports, my algorithm documentation, my prototype designs. Everything had his name in the header where mine used to be. Victoria frowned. "Ava, this is a closed meeting. I'm the principal scientist on Aurora. If we're discussing commercialization strategy, I should be here." Ryan jumped in smoothly. "Of course, Ava. I was going to brief you afterward. Please, sit." That smile. Always that smile. I sat in the back row and watched him present 3 years of my breakthroughs like they were his ideas. He talked about quantum coherence, time extension, about the novel error correction protocols, about the adaptive learning architecture, all things my team developed through hundreds of failed experiments and sleepless nights. The board members nodded along. Then Thomas Chen, our lead investor, raised his hand. "Ryan, this is impressive work. Can you explain how you achieved the 99.7% coherence stability? That's significantly higher than IBM's current benchmark." Ryan's smile flickered. "Just for a second. It's a combination of improved isolation chambers and optimized pulse sequences." Thomas leaned forward. "Right, but what specific modifications did you make to the pulse timing? That's where everyone else is hitting their ceiling." "Well, we adjusted the resonance frequency to account for environmental decoherence." Thomas glanced at his notes. "Your documentation mentions a dynamic calibration system. How does that integrate with the pulse timing?" Ryan hesitated. I could see panic creeping into his eyes. He didn't know. Of course he didn't know. He'd never asked about the actual science, just the numbers he could sell. "The calibration system monitors quantum state fidelity in real time and makes micro-adjustments to maintain coherence. It's fairly standard in the industry." Thomas frowned. "Standard systems don't achieve 99.7% stability. What makes yours different?" The room was getting uncomfortable. Victoria started to intervene, but I stood up. "May I?" Ryan's jaw tightened. "Ava, I can handle this." "I'm sure you can. But since I developed the calibration system, maybe I can provide some technical details. I walked to the front before anyone could stop me. Mr. Chen, the breakthrough isn't the calibration itself. It's the predictive algorithm that anticipates decoherence events before they occur. Thomas sat up straighter. Predictive? How far in advance? 3 to 5 nanoseconds. We trained a neural network on 200,000 hours of quantum state data to recognize the signatures of impending decoherence. The system makes preemptive corrections before the quantum state degrades. The room went silent. Thomas was writing notes frantically. Another board member, Jennifer Walsh, spoke up. That's extraordinary. How did you validate the predictive accuracy? Cross-validation across 12 different quantum processor architectures, then real-world testing over 8,000 hours of continuous operation. The false positive rate is under 0.003%. Jennifer was staring at me now, not Ryan. And this is why you're confident in the 6-month timeline? Here was my moment. I could lie, back up Ryan's insane schedule, keep my job, or I could tell the truth and watch everything burn. No, I'm not confident in the 6-month timeline at all. The predictive system is ready, but we still need extensive testing on the full integration. Rushing to market in 6 months will result in catastrophic failure. Ryan's face went red. Ava, that's not what we discussed. We never discussed it. You decided it, unilaterally. Victoria stood up. This is inappropriate. Ava, you're undermining your project lead in front of the board. I'm protecting 3 years of work from being destroyed by an impossible deadline. I turned back to the board. Every expert in quantum computing will tell you the same thing. This technology is revolutionary, but it's not ready. If we launch prematurely, we won't get a second chance. Thomas looked at Victoria. We need to discuss this. All of this. The meeting ended in chaos. Ryan stormed out. Victoria asked me to wait outside while they deliberated. I sat in the hallway for 90 minutes, watching my career circle the drain. When they finally called me back in, Victoria's expression was ice. The board wants an independent technical assessment of Aurora's readiness. Until then, the 6-month timeline is suspended. I should have felt relief. Instead, I felt dread, because Victoria's next words confirmed my worst fear. However, your behavior today was unacceptable. You will report directly to Ryan from now on. All technical decisions require his approval. All communication with the board goes through him. If you cannot work within this structure, we'll need to discuss your future at Next Tech. There it was. Report to Ryan or leave. Let him control everything or walk away from Aurora. They were betting I loved my project too much to quit. They were wrong. That afternoon, I called Olivia Mercer. She's a patent attorney I met at a conference 2 years ago. Sharp as a razor and ruthless when she needs to be. Olivia, I need to know where I stand legally. If I leave Next Tech, what happens to my work on Aurora? Send me your employment contract and all patent applications. I'll review everything. How long will that take? 72 hours. Ava, if you're planning what I think you're planning, you need to be very careful. Companies like Next Tech have armies of lawyers. I know. That's why I need the best one I can find. Last night, I did something that might be brilliant or might be career suicide. I emailed Dr. Elias Carter. He's the CEO of Titan Dynamics, Next Tech's biggest competitor. We met once at a symposium where he called my research on quantum entanglement the most promising work in the field. The email was simple. Dr. Carter, I'm exploring new opportunities. Would you be open to a conversation about quantum AI development? He replied in 20 minutes. Ava, I've been following your work closely. Let's talk. Are you free tomorrow at 2 p.m.? I'll send a car. So that's where I am now. In 6 hours, I'm meeting with Next Tech's biggest rival. Olivia is reviewing my contracts. Ryan thinks he's won. Victoria thinks she's put me in my place. Neither of them realizes I'm not fighting to save my position at Next Tech anymore. I'm fighting to save Aurora itself, even if that means burning every bridge I've built here. This is either the smartest move I've ever made or the biggest mistake of my life. I'll find out soon enough. My phone has 247 missed calls. Next Tech stock dropped 34% in 4 hours. Ryan Hale was fired this morning. And it's all because of a lunch meeting that happened 3 days ago. The car Elias Carter sent was a black Mercedes with leather seats that probably cost more than my yearly salary. The driver took me to a private dining room at the Sterling Club, one of those places where tech billionaires make deals that reshape industries. Elias was already there when I arrived, reading something on his tablet. He's 56, silver hair, sharp eyes that miss nothing. Ava Sterling, the woman who taught quantum computers to predict the future. He stood and shook my hand. I've been waiting for this conversation for 2 years. 2 years? Since your paper on adaptive error correction. I tried to hire you then, but Victoria matched my offer and you stayed loyal. Loyalty is admirable. But from what I hear, Nextech isn't returning the favor. I should have been surprised he knew. I wasn't. Silicon Valley runs on information. They put the CEO's son in charge of my project. He doesn't understand the science, but he's convinced he can cut the timeline in half and double the profits. Elias poured wine into both our glasses. Ryan Hale, Harvard MBA, zero technical background, allergic to the word impossible. I know the type. They think quantum computing is just regular computing but faster. He called my research academic masturbation in front of the board. And Victoria let him? Elias leaned back, studying me. Let me guess. She's protecting her son's career at the expense of your project. You spoke up, they slapped you down, and now you're realizing that genius doesn't matter when you're fighting nepotism backed by billions. He wasn't wrong. So what are you offering? Chief Innovation Officer at Titan Dynamics. You build whatever you want, however you want. Unlimited budget, full team, zero interference. Your name on every patent, every paper, every breakthrough. No Ryan Hale looking over your shoulder. No Victoria Hale stealing your credit. It sounded too good to be true. What's the catch? No catch, just one question. Can you rebuild Aurora from scratch without Nextech's resources? I met his eyes. In 18 months, I can build something better. Then we have a deal. He extended his hand across the table. Welcome to Titan Dynamics, Dr. Sterling. I should have known it wouldn't be that simple. We spent 2 hours discussing technical details, salary, equity, start date. Elias wanted me to begin in 2 weeks. I said I needed 4 to wrap up ethically at Nextech, document everything properly, make sure my team was protected. He respected that. We left the restaurant at 3:30 p.m. I felt lighter than I had in months. A future where I controlled my own work, where my ideas mattered more than someone's last name. I was so caught up in that feeling that I didn't notice the man across the street taking photos with a telephoto lens. The next morning I arrived at the lab at 7 a.m. like always. My keycard didn't work. I tried again. Red light. Error. Access denied. I called security. There must be a mistake. I'm Dr. Sterling, principal scientist. No mistake, ma'am. Your access was revoked at midnight. You need to report to HR immediately. My stomach dropped. I went straight to HR. Ryan was already there, sitting in the director's office like he owned it. On the desk between us were printed photos. Me shaking hands with Elias Carter. Me laughing at something he said. Me getting into his car. Ryan's smile was gone. In its place was cold fury. Corporate espionage, Ava? Really? I knew you were bitter, but I didn't think you'd stoop this low. I met with a colleague about future opportunities. That's not espionage. Elias Carter isn't a colleague. He's our biggest competitor. You gave him proprietary information about Aurora. I discussed general quantum computing principles. Nothing proprietary. Nothing that isn't already in published papers. The HR director, Patricia Moore, cut in. Dr. Sterling, your employment contract includes a non-compete clause and strict confidentiality requirements. Meeting with a direct competitor without company approval is a terminable offense. Then terminate me. The words came out before I could stop them. Because I'm not apologizing for exploring opportunities after being undermined, harassed, and having my work stolen. Ryan stood up. You're suspended pending investigation. Security will escort you out. You have 1 hour to clean out your desk. And Ava? Don't even think about taking any files, any notes, anything that belongs to Nextech. We'll be watching. They walked me out like a criminal. 2 security guards flanking me while I packed my personal items into a cardboard box. My team watched from the lab windows. I couldn't even say goodbye. By noon, an company-wide email went out. Dr. Ava Sterling has been suspended for violating confidentiality agreements and engaging in potential corporate espionage. All employees are instructed to cease communication with Dr. Sterling until further notice. I called Olivia from my car. They're accusing me of corporate espionage. They're probably going to sue. Let them. I finished reviewing your contracts this morning. Ava, you have them by the throat and they don't even know it yet. What do you mean? Every patent application for Aurora lists you as the primary inventor. Your employment contract says Nextech owns the work product, but here's the beautiful part. The core algorithms? You developed those during your PhD, before you joined Nextech. You licensed them to the company, but you retained ownership. Without your continued licensing agreement, Aurora doesn't work. My heart was pounding. Are you saying I can pull the license? I'm saying you should. Today, right now. Let me draft the termination letter. Olivia, that will destroy the project. Good. They accused you of espionage. They humiliated you. They stole 3 years of your life. Burn it down, Ava. Burn it all down. 2 hours later, Nextech's legal department received Olivia's letter. Effective immediately, Doctor. Ava Sterling terminates all licensing agreements for proprietary algorithms and methodologies incorporated into Project Aurora. Nextech is hereby notified that continued use of these algorithms constitutes intellectual property theft and will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Aurora crashed 6 hours later. The quantum decoherence rate spiked to 89%. The predictive algorithm stopped functioning. Error messages flooded every terminal. The system that was supposed to be worth $900 million was suddenly outputting garbage. My phone started ringing. Ryan called 17 times. I didn't answer. Victoria left voicemails that went from angry to desperate. I deleted them all. My former team members texted me begging for help. I felt awful ignoring them. But Olivia was clear. No contact. Any assistance you provide can be used against you in court. This morning, Nextech held an emergency board meeting. I know because Thomas Chen called me personally. Ava, I owe you an apology. We should have listened when you warned us about Ryan. The board voted unanimously to terminate him. Victoria has been placed on administrative leave pending a full review of her management decisions. I appreciate you telling me. We need you back. Name your price. Full control of Aurora, seat on the board, whatever you want. Just please, come back and fix this. I thought about it. 3 seconds of consideration for 3 years of work. No. Good luck, Mr. Chen. Nextech stock is in freefall. 3 major partners have pulled their contracts. The company is facing hundreds of millions in losses. And I'm sitting in a hotel room watching it all burn, knowing I lit the match. I start at Titan Dynamics on Monday. Elias called this afternoon. I'm hearing interesting things about Nextech. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you? Just taking back what's mine. He laughed. Welcome to Titan, Dr. Sterling. I think you're going to fit in perfectly here. It's been 14 months since I walked out of Nextech with a cardboard box and a burning need for justice. My first day at Titan Dynamics, Elias walked me through their quantum computing division. 20,000 square feet of cutting-edge lab space, equipment that made Nextech's setup look like a high school science fair. He introduced me to my new team. 40 researchers, engineers, and scientists. The best minds Elias could recruit from MIT, Stanford, Caltech, and overseas programs. Dr. Sterling, these people are yours, Elias said. Build something that changes the world. That's your only job. The team was skeptical at first. I was young for a CIO and my last project had just spectacularly imploded. During our first meeting, a senior researcher named Dr. Patricia Okonkwo asked the question everyone was thinking. Dr. Sterling, how do we know this won't end like Aurora? I looked around the room, 40 pairs of eyes waiting for an answer. Aurora didn't fail because of the science. It failed because people who didn't understand it tried to control it. Here's my promise to you. I will never ask you to cut corners. I will never prioritize profit over safety. I will never let someone's ego destroy years of your work. You give me your best science and I'll protect it with everything I have. Patricia nodded slowly. Then let's build something incredible. We started from scratch. No shortcuts, no borrowed code, no pressure to meet impossible deadlines. I took everything I'd learned from Aurora's failures and rebuilt the foundation. The new system, which we called Nexus, wasn't just an improvement. It was a complete reimagining of how quantum AI could work. 6 months in, we had our first breakthrough. A quantum coherence time of 847 microseconds. The previous record was 412. Patricia came running into my office at midnight, data streaming across her tablet. Ava, you need to see this. We just doubled the industry standard. I stared at the numbers. They were impossible. They were beautiful. Run it again. Verify everything. We ran 10,000 test cycles over the next month. Every single one confirmed it. Nexus wasn't just better than Aurora. It was better than anything anyone had ever built. 3 months after that, we achieved 99.97% quantum state fidelity. Not 99.7% like Aurora. 99.97%. That extra decimal point represented a revolution. Meanwhile, Nextech was dying, slowly at first, then catastrophically. Without Aurora, they had nothing to compete with. IBM announced a partnership with Titan Dynamics 2 months after I joined. Google followed 3 months later. Every major player in quantum computing wanted to work with us, and nobody wanted to touch Nextech. Thomas Chen called me 6 months after I left. Ava, I need to tell you something. Nextech is being acquired. Well, not acquired, dismantled. We're selling off the quantum division to a Chinese conglomerate, the AI research to a European firm, and the rest is going to venture capital vultures who'll strip it for parts. I'm sorry to hear that. Don't be. You tried to warn us. We chose the CEO's son over the scientist who built everything. We deserve this. He paused. Victoria resigned last week. She's facing multiple lawsuits from investors. Ryan is nowhere to be found. I heard he moved to Phoenix and is doing freelance consulting, barely making rent. I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not pity, just emptiness where anger used to be. Thank you for telling me, Thomas. One more thing. The team you left behind. Most of them have been let go. If you're hiring, they'd follow you anywhere. I hired 12 of them within the week. Seeing their faces light up when I offered them positions at Titan was the first time I'd felt genuinely happy since this nightmare started. My old lead engineer, David Kim, actually cried during his interview. Ava, I thought my career was over. After Nextech collapsed, nobody would even look at my resume. Your career isn't over, David. It's just getting started. Welcome to Titan. Last month, we unveiled Nexus at the International Quantum Computing Conference in San Francisco. 5,000 attendees, every major tech publication, live streams hitting millions of viewers. I stood on that stage and presented the system that had consumed the last year of my life. The system that proved I didn't need Nextech, didn't need Ryan's approval, didn't need anyone's permission to be brilliant. The demonstration was flawless. Nexus solved optimization problems in 3.2 seconds that would take classical supercomputers 6 months. The audience went silent, then erupted in applause. Standing ovation. Media frenzy. Within hours, Titan stock jumped 47%. We had acquisition offers from Microsoft, Amazon, and Apple. Before I even left the building, Elias found me backstage, grinning like he'd just won the lottery. Dr. Sterling, you just made history. How does it feel? Like vindication. Better than vindication. Nextech announced they're shutting down completely next week. You didn't just beat them, you erased them. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt tired. Elias, I didn't do this to destroy Nextech. I did it to save my work. You did both. And that's what makes you dangerous. The media called it the greatest comeback in Silicon Valley history. Forbes ran a cover story. Ava Sterling, the scientist who brought down a billion-dollar empire. Wired did a deep dive into the Aurora collapse. TechCrunch published internal Nextech emails showing Ryan's incompetence. Every outlet wanted an interview, wanted my perspective, wanted me to gloat about my victory. I looked directly into the camera. This wasn't about revenge. This was about protecting something that could change the world. Ryan Hale had every advantage. Money, connections, his mother running the company. All he had to do was listen to the people who actually understood the science. Instead, he chose ego over expertise. He stole credit, manipulated data, and tried to rush a revolutionary technology to market before it was ready. That wouldn't have just destroyed Aurora. It would have set quantum computing back a decade and cost thousands of researchers their credibility. Amanda leaned forward. But you pulled your licensing agreements knowing it would crash the system. You destroyed 3 years of work. I destroyed a corrupted version of my work. The real Aurora, the one built on solid science and ethical practices, is now Nexus. It's better, faster, and more powerful than what Nextech had, because this time, it was built right. And Ryan Hale? Any regrets about how his story ended? I chose my words carefully. Ryan had opportunities I never had. He could have learned. He could have collaborated. He could have treated the people doing the actual work with respect. Instead, he chose to demean, harass, and ultimately try to erase the contributions of everyone who made Aurora possible. His story didn't end because of me. It ended because he fundamentally misunderstood that in science, competence matters more than connections. The interview aired 3 weeks ago. The response was overwhelming. Messages from young scientists saying I inspired them to stand up for their work. Offers from universities to speak about intellectual property rights. Even a few apologies from people at Nextech who knew what was happening but stayed silent. But the message that mattered most came from someone I never expected. An email from a Proton Mail account with no name attached. The subject line read, "You were right." The email was short. I thought I could fake it until I made it. I thought confidence could replace competence. I thought my last name was enough. I was wrong about everything, and it cost me everything. You tried to teach me. I wouldn't listen. I'm sorry. It wasn't signed, but I knew who sent it. I deleted it without responding. Some bridges deserve to stay burned. Yesterday, Elias called me into his office. "Ava, we need to talk about your future at Titan." My stomach dropped. After everything, was I about to lose this too? Okay. I'm stepping down as CEO next year. The board wants fresh leadership for our next phase of growth. He paused, watching my reaction. They want you, Ava, Chief Executive Officer of Titan Dynamics. You'd be the youngest CEO of a major tech company in history. I stared at him. Elias, I'm a scientist. I'm not qualified to run a company. Neither was I when I started. But you know what matters most. You protect the science. You respect the people doing the work. You don't let ego override expertise. That's what makes a great CEO in this industry. Everything else, you can learn. I'm still thinking about his offer. Part of me wants to stay in the lab, keep building, keep creating. But another part remembers what it felt like to watch Ryan destroy something beautiful because nobody with power stopped him. Maybe the best way to protect science is to be the person with power. So that's where my story stands. Nextech is gone. Ryan Hale went from Silicon Valley golden boy to unemployable. Victoria Hale went from CEO of a billion-dollar company to defendant in multiple lawsuits. And me? I went from a scientist fighting for respect to someone who proved that genius doesn't need permission.